Welcome back to the Real Talk with Michelle podcast. This is episode number 81, Real Talk with multidimensional healing facilitator, movement artist, and host of the Full as Human podcast, Melanie Holst, aka Mel the Oracle. Hi, love. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you for having me.
you're so welcome. Mel, tell the listeners, if I can call you Mel, uh,
Yes.
tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Michelle stated that I'm a multidimensional healing facilitator, which, really just means that there are many ways that I go about working with and being with people to, usher them into their bodies, into their senses, and on their transformational journey. So whether it be movement or meditation or tea or music. There's so many different ways. So that's what I've been doing for the last 7 years. But I recently decided to take like a little business sabbatical,
Yes.
just to like take some deep care of myself. So although that is what I am and have been right now, I'm just Mel and I'm feeling and being for a living until I kind of like reacclimate to this new chapter that I'm in.
I love that. That was like a perfect explanation of that too. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But before we do, I stumbled across your page on Instagram before I think you made the shift into Mail the Oracle. I think you took like it was one page and then it kind of went to a follow me over here if these things, interest you. Talk about what prompted you to change and like shed the old page.
Ooh. So yeah, I would say that this kind of like big shift that I just made of taking the business sabbatical and moving, the energy with this started around that time.
Okay.
um, I Grow Your Love Space is still like the parent name of my company. And that has been my company name and brand since I started in 2015.
Mhm.
So that's actually what the name of my page was before. And then I was starting to feel like I was growing away from that. Like it felt like, okay, that could still be the parent name of my company, but the way that I be online, it just isn't resonating with that. So then I changed it to Flowing with Mel, and then Mel the Oracle. So I was actually going through like some deep spiritual initiations during that time. I had had
Mhm.
some like past life regression things happening, and I was having visions of me like in a log cabin working with herbs and all kinds of things. And so a lot was churning inside of like, okay, what is my work really? Like what am I talking about? What is my message and my mission right now? And so with all of that happening, I just was like, you know what, this space that I've grown in for the past 7 years, it just doesn't feel expansive enough from where I'm going. I need to
Right.
just create a whole new space. And
I
obviously,
love that.
it's social media, right? So, but when the way that I think about it, I always think about things as far as energy and space. So for me, it felt really important to like, yeah, I can't even grow in here. I'm not going to try and make this a different page. I'm just going to create something else. So that's what prompted that.
I love that. I am also the same kind of person. It's hard for me to try because I had another page as well, and I'm still trying to tell people like I'm not over there. They keep, sending you messages and stuff. I'm like I'm not there, but you're welcome to join me over here because I don't know how to do two things at once in that capacity. It's like this is just not what I'm doing anymore. But you can come here. So I definitely get that. And I was like, oh, I'm following her. Like, where are we going?
I love that. Thank you for following me.
Yes, I did. I was like, oh, we can go over here. um, let's see, when you went to your new page, you begin to share your journey with movement, femininity, sensuality, and sexuality a little bit more. Talk about that too. That was exciting.
Yeah. So that was a part of my old page. It's been very much a part of me and the way that I work with women specifically.
Hmm.
But yeah, moving over to this new space, something was like, girl, you doing it halfway. Like, and we're not. we cannot let like this part of you, this message that you have to share, simmer on the back burner. So you going over here, and we're going to go full throttle with, talking about women reimagining their womanhood and understanding the deep like depth of returning to their bodies and finding sensuality there, and sensuality as a portal. So I, it was again, that movement just felt like, all right, if you're going to do it, stop hiding this part of yourself. I mean, I was sharing it already, but it was still very like, oh,
Hmm.
dipping my toe in.
Right.
um so going over here, it felt like, all right, let's really really dive into this, and it felt nourishing to me because, she mentioned my podcast, Full Ass Human. That's what I'm all about. There's so many different dimensions of a person, and a lot of times, I don't know if this is something that you experience too, being public facing, but when you do something, people catch on to maybe one thing that you do, and then
Yes.
there's the box that they put you in,
Yes.
and then that's what they name you, right? And so for me, it's always important to be like, hold up, yeah, and this, and it's all here.
Yes.
So
I feel the same way. Like, and I struggle with that a little bit too, being like, there's so many things that like I like to do that I'm interested in and I want to share them. But you know how they say on social media, like, you need to niche all the way down. And I'm like, that's never been who I've been. So I know these people, some of them may have, but a lot of them didn't come thinking like, this is all Michelle will be doing. Like, you know?
yeah, yeah.
And this one for me, I wanted to talk about because I noticed sometimes, just, being an online being, that even though you were creating space for women, sometimes the very women who chose to follow you seemed like they became agitated a little bit with your openness. And like, what do you think that stems from?
Oh yeah.
Like, do
And
you know
that
that?
so that was always to be expected. I don't think that I was ever surprised by that. And here's the
Okay.
thing, like, this is what I know. Okay.
Yes.
This is just human behavior, but specifically for women, when they see other women being as if as they would like to be, but they feel like they can't, it's triggering.
Very much so.
So seeing a woman like myself on social media is triggering.
Mhm.
And I've experienced too. I've seen other women who I feel like, dang, she's going like deep into, if I see other women's movement and I'm like, well, I don't know if I could do that. Like, it's something is triggering about when you see something that you might like be inspired by, but you secretly are like, but I can't be that, or I can't do that, or
Not
who does she think
allowed.
she is? Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
allowed, right? And
Mhm.
that's what women have been sitting with for generations and generations and generations. I'm not allowed to, walk outside and my nipples are poking. I'm not allowed to have my cleavage or not wear,
Mm.
bras or not shave my leg, whatever it is. I'm not allowed to do that. I can't do that. So who does she think she is? And I don't like
Right.
that. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so, but it's just rubbing up against something in them that they feel like they can't attain.
Right.
So that's what allows me to not take it personally, because I know that. But I always tell everyone, there's the door. I mean, you can
Right.
unfollow, honey. It is so
Anytime you
accessible.
want. Right. You can go. It
You can
just might
go.
not be for you at this time.
But I try, so I have that attitude of like, honey, you can go, but also compassion,
Hmm.
because I understand where that agitation can come from. For some women, they are just, haters, and that's okay. But
Right.
for most, it's usually like, ooh, she's doing something that I'm scared to do, and I'm triggered by seeing her.
Yeah. That I've definitely been in that situation before on the other end, being like, wow, I wish I could just twerk like that online. And it just be like, and then I started with just doing it for myself, like you were kind of teaching, just in the mirror by myself alone. It doesn't have to be for public consumption, but it just might be something that you need to do because it's okay, to honor those parts of yourself. So I did find a lot of inspiration from your page with that.
Yeah.
Definitely. I was going to say, I know, like you said, you spoke a little bit about it, like you were getting big nudges that like you had to step out of this space that you were in to morph into, kind of taking you exactly where you are now. What kind of signs were you getting from spirit, God, universe? Like, how does one know when it's happening to them?
Mm-hmm. So, oof, I always, okay,
Take
how do
your
I say this? For me personally, because everybody, the way they get signs, everything hits differently.
yes.
I notice the signs because spirit speaks through people.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of friends who are very in touch with themselves and they're deep into self-awareness. So they'll ask me questions or they'll say things where I'm like, and so it'll end up being like three people, within the month or four people within the month. And I'm like, okay, I think, you know what I mean? Like I hear you, but that's a matter of just like really paying attention. Cause I'm like, you're the fourth person who I trust and who I really like am close to, who has said some like semblance of this message. Okay.
Mhm.
So I always take that as a strong sign. But
Yes.
I also just get, you know, and this is the thing, this is why my work centered around like what's this relationship like in your body, because what sensations do you get when you're doing certain things or when you're thinking about certain things or when you're in a space, what's happening, is your aura like opening or contracting, you know what I mean, like do you
Right.
feel, yeah. And so a lot of times when I was, oh, I just got so burnt out. But I noticed that that's what was happening because my body, when I was doing my work, this stuff that in my mind and in my heart too, I love, like, this is exciting. I want to, but my aura was feeling like this. So it wasn't congruent. There's
Right.
like these little things. So it's messages outside of me, but also internal that I was getting that just was like something. I know we use the word aligned a lot, but that's a real thing. Like this doesn't feel, something ain't right. And what is it? And girl, for a long time, nobody could tell me that it was like my business and what I was doing. I
Right.
would not have been able to accept that any moment before the moment that I accepted it. Because if somebody would have said, I would have been like,
There's no way.
there's the door. You know what I mean? Like that's what I was saying.
Don't wish that on my business.
Yeah, don't what? Excuse me? So that it was months and months of that, right? Like I said, this churning started happening around that time that I shifted pages. So this is like from September, October to March when I finally was like, okay, you know what? I need to step out. I need to step out and zoom out for a little
Right.
bit.
Yes. I always tell like a similar story. Like I own a nail salon. I was in there full time, like
Mm,
completely. And like I just started to be pulled towards this, be pulled more to like forefront speaking, using my voice. I was quiet for a really long time, kind of going through like a dark night of the soul. I lost my voice, like couldn't barely
mm,
hear. It was so weird. I felt like because I couldn't hear, I was intended to listen more and
mm,
like speak less. Like I had no voice. And it was just, I was being pulled out of the salon, like, and for a minute I stayed out and then I was like, you know what? Nope, I'm gonna go back. I need money. And so I went back in because I have girls that work with me, but I went back in to, increase mine. And when I went back, like maybe I was in for like a good month, I kind of got my clients back, seeing some of my old people, and we had a tornado like in Nashville. It was just like, okay, so we had to stop the salon for a minute. It took the girls could go back, but I kind of needed to handle like behind the scenes stuff that was going on. Like the area was full of devastation. Then we
Mhm.
got back going, and then Corona happened, and it was like, what?
Oh,
It was just like, you are not supposed to
yeah.
sit in this chair full time, man. Like, you're just not. So, like, figure it out. Like, see what has to happen. Spirit sent another girl to rent from me. So it was just like,
Mhm.
okay, so there's no tables. Like, there's not even any more tables. And it's like those little things, because sometimes I am honorary. Spirit is like, okay, we're going to send a natural disaster, and then we're just pandemic her, like she can't go back. And then, I'm in there now, but it's more like I go for a day or something. I like see some people and then I'm out. And the rest of my time is meant to be connecting with people, talking, and sharing my voice and sharing the voices of others. And I always tell people the signs are, you can ignore them for as long as you want.
Uh,
You can wait for a tornado or a
right.
pandemic, or you can do it now, scared, afraid, not
Yeah.
knowing.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you could take the step or you could make the divine, whatever you call it, push you. Like either one, you could take the step or you could get muffed and pushed and dragged. It's up to
Right.
you.
Drag is the perfect word. Like,
Drag. Yeah, that's
drag through some
drag.
situations. um, let's see. Oh, I did want to say, how did you know that your intended path was to help women specifically?
Mm. So that's a good question. Okay. Wow, that's a good question. And I feel like it was a natural, right? So when I first started facilitating sacred spaces, like yoga specifically, it was for the BIPOC community. So it was men, women, however you identified. But I really wanted to get Black men specifically in my classes. So it
Right.
was really about that community as a whole when I started. And then I started to get into like deep into my practice and growth of sensuality and movement in that way and the power behind that. And it was like, like there's a shift here. Like I still want to work with this community as a whole, but it feels like something's naturally progressing this way. So that's it, just was kind of a natural progression. But I'll tell you what, I had this business coach back in like 2015 or 14, but she
Okay.
was also extremely psychic. So we would be in our sessions and she would be like, "Oh, I got this hit," or "I just got this message." So the last session that we had, she was like, "Oh, before I hang up, I just got this vision of you. You're going to be working with women. It's going to be centered around sensuality and sexuality and like health in that regard." Yeah, this was 2014, and at the time, girl, I hadn't even started teaching yoga yet. I hadn't done nothing yet.
What?
So I heard her say that and I was like, well, that's interesting, and totally forgot about it. And I'd say probably like around 2017 when I got deeper and deeper into like teaching sensual yoga and movement, that memory flashback and I was like, oh shit, like she told me this back in 2014. So
Yes.
the progression was just, it was natural because of what was happening inside of me personally.
Mhm.
And so when I'm doing something and I get that nudge of this is for you to share, I just do the shit. You know what I mean? Like that's just how I move. That's the same thing
I
that
love
happened when
that.
I moved to Austin. It was very intuitive of like, yep, you need to go here. And I was like, okay. So that's just how I move in life,
I
like
love
in
it.
real life. That's how I
I
move.
love that. I love how you put like inside of me always first, because I
First.
think people always look for external validation. And a lot of the times, like you said, our body feels good, doesn't feel good, or, it gives us the information we need to
Oh my
proceed with things.
That's the
Definitely.
thing. And I love how you know, this inside first and then external. Cause even, okay, so around, this conversation around divine feminine and sensuality as a, portal, and turn on as power, like around the end of 2016, 2017 time. Of course, there were already communities of women. I'm sure there were books and all these things out, but as far as it being portrayed on social media and it being a wave, it hadn't really happened yet.
No.
It hadn't happened.
I don't think
And
any of the openness that you see now was visible online, like at all.
it really wasn't. It really wasn't. So when I started posting, I know that I wasn't the first woman to, but when I started posting those videos, people were like, "What the fuck are you doing?" But then they were also like, "What the fuck are you doing?" It was like this
Like, yes,
too.
I feel
So
that for sure.
I know. So this woman, she's a friend of mine. I was on her podcast a couple months ago. She said something and I was like, oh, she was like, yeah, you were kind of at the forefront of that. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Yeah. Like I had never took that on or owned that before. But yeah, now that I think about it,
It
it was,
was the first of its kind, I have to say, that I had seen because, obviously there's dance. It was a whole lot of that TikToky, like, all of that stuff going on, but it wasn't ever anybody that I felt like was like moving with, and
mm,
not saying dancers don't, they do, but moving with more of a softer side, a feminine side, and viewing yourself while doing it too, I felt was like really
mm,
powerful for women to see. Because a
yes.
lot of a lot of people might dance, but they don't look at themselves. People don't just look at themselves in the mirror. So that's radical in and of itself.
Mm, yes. And that's, yeah, I made that really intentional when I was teaching that class. Like, yes, you're looking at this unfolding.
Yes. Um, what are some of the blockages you see in women in the work that you do?
Hmm. Well, we kind of talked about it. Women are deeply, 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 deeply conditioned to reject anything that really comes with womanhood that isn't at the service of men.
Ooh, a word. I
All
love
right.
to sound bite that one for sure.
Yes. So, with that being the case, that's the biggest blockage that I saw and I noticed, and that I was also working through as I was teaching, right? Like I hadn't overcome, I still haven't fully, I hadn't overcome all my conditioning and
Yeah.
or blocks that I had around this work. But it was something that I was doing in the process. And the more that I saw it, the more I was like, yeah, we need this. So we are just taught to reject anything
Hmm.
that allows us to give pleasure back to ourselves, allows us to like pour into ourselves in a way that isn't socially acceptable for everyone else. So moving, you post a picture of yourself a certain way, automatically it's a thirst trap. You post a video of yourself moving and you can clearly see that it's for you and it's attention seeking, you
Yeah.
know don't tap into, I mean, be sensual but not like that, or be feminine but not like that. Like there's always these nuanced ways that women are basically told, stop that, slap on the hand,
Mhm.
stop. So that was huge. That was huge. And then so many of the women that I worked with had traumatic experiences linked to their sensuality and their sexuality. And so that was another huge block that I saw. There was so much shame and judgment and fear around even just returning to your body as a place of wisdom, as a place of healing, as a place of power. And so, those were the biggest blocks. But when women were in these circles sharing what they experienced after, like moving through the movement sequence and all of that, that was also the biggest thing that made communities grow and that created sisterhoods. So the biggest blockages that I saw were also the biggest, I think, pillars that like created bonds and sisterhood
Yes.
amongst the women that I worked with.
Those like groups when women meet, I think are just so powerful in almost any healing capacity. Just when you put women in a room together to, work with a coach or like work with someone like yourself, like I think the first time I was there, I just like cried. I'm like, I don't even know. I've cried. I'm just like, it's my turn to speak and just introduce myself. But I just remember feeling all the energy in the room of everybody who is just sharing experiences that have brought us to this goddess gathering. And it was just, it's amazing, like what it can do and how it, like you said, creates community and gives women the opportunity to just to share without any judgment or, like you said, it having to do with the men folks in any way.
Right?
They're not present, so you can open up truly. I feel like.
Look, sisterhood is a spiritual practice.
Yes.
And we do not view it that way, but there is a deep spiritual churning. We particles and atoms are changed in a space when women get together. Like chemically, scientifically, stuff is happening.
I
So yeah. And so and
agree.
we need each other. So yeah, that the power in sharing and like my voice is coming out of my mouth into this space and y'all are looking at me and just holding it for me and you can relate and you see me and you feel me. What? Like
Right.
that in itself offers such like deep healing for a woman. You know, even if she goes to one space like that, something in her has shifted because she was able to have that experience.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Oh, this is giving me goosebumps.
I love it. I
Oh
love
my
it.
goodness. Like when I get excited, it's just like hair stays straight up.
Yeah.
Because this is one and the same, like, talking to you and sharing and vice versa. And it does the same thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see. Okay, so you were talking a little bit earlier about how you made like a big trek, and I was listening to your podcast the other day, very inspired by how you took the time on the journey without it being like, rushed. Um, and you were saying you took a break from your work in the healing space, and you know what? Hold on, we talked about a lot of this. We've been coming up on ground.
That's okay.
Let's just skip to this question then. What has that been like for you, um, going back home, as you called it in your podcast?
Look, I'm like listeners, girl, Michelle, leave this pause in there because that's a real.
I'm leaving all of
Don't
this.
edit the pause out because, oof,
No, it's important. The pauses, the
right?
thinking and the thoughts. Yes, we have time.
It has been the honest words that come to mind is it has been very uncomfortable.
Okay.
It's been, grief filled. And it has been like an ongoing ego death experience.
Yeah.
That's how it's been. And it has been beautiful to be in my childhood home. You know, I talked about this on another girl. I feel like I've been on a podcast tour. It's so funny. But on another podcast a few days ago, I was just this idea came up that I'm like an infant again. And that's how it feels. Like everything I identified with, my business, living in Texas, and the facilitator and the business owner, and all of that is kind of like on hold or in the back right now. And so I feel very stripped and raw and naked and new, like an infant. So to be home And feeling like that has felt deeply supportive, honestly. So being back around family and, driving to these familiar places, it's been beautiful, but it's tough. Like I'll be honest right now. I'm probably in like a little bit of a depressed episode just because I'm trying to acclimate. There's just a lot of reacclimation and a lot of mourning and grieving going on. So it's been a little tough to navigate, but at the same time, like I have no doubt, in where I'm at right now. Like I'm definitely supposed to be here. So I just am taking my time to ease myself into this change because it's a big change.
It is. And kind of share with, because you are in touch with how you feel inside and like you're in a depressive state, but you also seem aware of it enough to know how to deal with it. And I know it's different for each of us, but share like some of the ways that you kind of can transmute that energy sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we can stay inside and in a hole and under blankets and
Oh my gosh.
but it helps to know like sometimes we can take that energy and flip it around for the day.
Absolutely. Yes. Cause that's what I want to do. Literally this morning, I got up and I was like, I literally said out loud, you know what I want to do? And I laid back down and put the covers over my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I literally did that this morning. So, well, here's the thing. For me, I have had like many eras of life where I have clearly experienced depression. So I have this like spectrum of experiences that I can call on. So it's almost like a self check when I like, so now I'm like, okay, back then you was feeling like you don't feel like this. So it's so almost
Hmm.
like this check of like, you're okay.
Yeah.
Yes, you're here, you feel this, but like you're okay because you've had experiences before and this isn't like that. So this it almost is like this is lighter, which lets you know like this is something that you are moving out of. It's
Yes.
it's like this self-check that I go through. So a big thing for me is like I'll take my, little 15 extra minutes, maybe an hour to lay down in the bed, but I make sure and I get up and go upstairs and I see my family and it's like because I'll isolate.
Hmm.
I will
Yeah.
isolate. I will become very like inside and implosive. I've found that setting up Zoom calls with people or phone calls helps
Hmm.
because another thing of like I think when I was a little maybe younger adulthood, I was very inside and implosive. The way that I processed was very internal and it was a lot of writing and journaling,
Yeah.
which I still do, but now I found that I need to process externally.
Hmm.
So when I'm feeling what I just I need to talk. I need to talk. I need to talk. So for me, that's been very supportive. Like being on these podcasts has been very supportive in moving me through this as well. So like, I appreciate you having me seriously because
Yes.
this does help me to kind of move myself through not deny it, not push it
Not
away,
bypass
not
it.
get, not bypass it. Because
Right.
I'm very much feeling, but I'm moving through healthily. And
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. Yeah.
And I think it's good because look what like spirit just keeps sending it to you because I was like, oh wait, she's taking podcasts. Like I should just ask, like to see what she's saying. So it's like I feel like spirit is like, hey girl, we're gonna talk this through.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said that. You helped to like clarify and what's the word?
Which
Girl, confirm. There you go.
yes.
Confirm that for me because you are so right. You're
Mhm.
so right.
And it's good to talk about it sometimes. And like you said, even just admit, like, you know, I'm not feeling my best, but we're gonna get through it because it's not the worst that I've
Right.
seen at all.
Right.
And I kind of do a good self check too, and I'm having those moments with myself because I made a big move, and it's just like out of the city, but I'm in the suburbs. I don't really know what to do like out here, but I know that it was a big move for me and that there's something in the transformation that's going to happen to me to make something else. Do I know what it is yet? Nope. So
Right.
it's like, but it's more quiet. I can think there's not so much external stimuli because I am one of those people that's just like, I'm gonna go do something just because. And so this has forced me to be more still and focus on things. So
Mm.
it's still interesting though, because when you get by yourself or away from everything, you can be like, well, no one wants to hang out with me, or no one calls me anymore, or why is it, why anything can become
Yep.
woe is me when you're by yourself.
Oh my gosh. Girl, yes. Don't get me started. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Or
You
feel
know
all
what
of
what,
it.
what came through when you said like, uh, I'm out here and it's like more stillness, more quiet. Like something big. You need to hear something big, like it's coming through. Like something you need to
It's
hear something.
something because it's um I've never lived outside of a city anywhere that I've lived. I've always lived in the middle of a city. I'm 39 years old. Like, so it's like, this is real quiet. Because even when I did like have a house that was still very close to everything, this is very much so like I see
Mm.
deer and rabbits and turkeys.
Oh,
Like
turkeys.
turkeys. Like my neighbor has a bird feeder. And one day I just looked over, I was like, man, I was like, those must be some dogs. Girl, it was two big turkeys eating up our
Turkey.
bird feeder, and I was like, "Oh my God, like, where
Wow.
am I
Right. Where are you?
in the country of Tennessee?" But I love it. I'm in a home. It's really a home I would dream of, the type of home I would want to own one day, and I have my own office, like I have space. So it's something here for me that will show itself. Like, the city was loud. It wasn't, you could hear crazy stuff in the background when I was podcasting.
Mm. Mhm.
So, yeah, we'll see what's to come of this. You said something about um, being a perfectionist and or like talking down on yourself in your podcast a little bit um,
Mhm.
during your journey that I resonated with. And I think you said perfectionists fear not being good enough, which I feel is true. How are you healing that part of yourself?
Ooh,
I would
yeah.
like to know as a perfectionist, I'm
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah. So yes, what I said was perfectionism is rooted in the core belief that I'm not good enough.
Okay.
And I'm gonna tell you how am I healing through my podcast? I
Okay.
can't even lie to you. Yeah, because seriously, I've been talking about wanting to do a podcast and all this. Girl, there's so much things I've talked about for years that I've just talked
Mhm.
about for years.
Yeah.
And I've just talked about for years. And like, and that's where it started and ended. So this podcast, I was like, all right, how can I go into this endeavor? Right? My business is on hold, all this other stuff. I'm moving, but I know I want to do this. How can I do this in, I've been using the term clean energy. Like,
Hmm.
how can I do this? Because what I've come from for the last 7 years is this feeling like a pressure to make my business work, a pressure to build my audience and reach so it can get more, a pressure to make sure everything is on brand, a pressure to make sure that I have money coming in, like
Yes.
everything has been pressure based. There might have been little moments of ease in my business, but for the most part, I've just put so much pressure on myself. So with the podcast, I was like, bam. So I'm not doing that with this.
Okay.
If anything with this podcast doesn't feel like ease, if it feels like pressure at any point where I'm trying to I'm gonna take a step back from it. So through my podcast, so girl, I released it without intro music. My
Yes.
vocals are not mixed and mastered. I do not have like a theme or nothing. I just was like, I need to do this, and this is my work that I'm putting out, and I'm putting it out. And so for me, that is big, girl, because this podcast would have not been released until next year if it were for me waiting on the intro music or waiting or, oh, my vocals, oh, that didn't sound right. Let me re-record. Like,
Mhm.
it would never happen. So me putting it out, in my mind, imperfect, is what's helping me to heal that wound.
Yes.
Is helping me to heal that wound, girl, like in a big way. So I am healing through my podcast, like the physical, putting it out as is, and just like
Just letting it go.
letting it go.
I resonate with that a lot. Like my first episode was just me rambling. I was like, well, we're here. Let me tell you how we got here and why I'm recording this. And a lot of them just, took you through the journey of what was happening to me at the time. So I think that's why I was like, full ass human, like I mess with this. Like it's raw and it's real. Your voice is very soothing, so it helps in your storytelling. So if you don't have all the stuff, I can't tell. So you sound
See,
really good.
you see, and that's the thing. So that's the thing I would offer to you as my fellow recovering perfectionist. Like, other people
They don't
don't
know.
even know. It is literally our standard that we're putting on something that no one else truly has for us. People don't know. People don't know my vocals are mixed and mastered.
I couldn't tell. It sounded great to me. So, and I was in the car, so that has its own sound.
No, like, they don't know that I didn't intentionally not add intro music. Like, they don't know that I'm just been waiting for it all this time. They don't know that. They literally have no idea. So it's that's, I think that's what I would offer. To me, it's still a note, or to you, and it's still a note to me of like, it's totally a standard that we're putting on ourselves that came from somewhere. It came from
Deeper
somewhere.
one. Yeah, it's deeper.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Horrible.
definitely deeper. It's
It's
definitely,
back in that childhood somewhere.
oh my God. And that's what I was saying. Perfectionism is the secondary wound. Like, the first one is somewhere learning that you weren't good enough, like showing up as you are in the way. There
Mm,
was something that said, that's not enough. Do more, do more.
right. Ooh.
Yeah, that's the primary thing. But perfectionism is like the effect of that.
Uh-huh. That definitely spoke to me, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm supposed to be listening today for sure," because I was like, "Wow, that's definitely me." I'm a little better at it. I just have to be like, "That's enough. Like, stop right now. You can keep. I will move something like if I can't."
Yes.
Looking at it, I'm like, nope, put it back. I'm just like, girl, stop. No,
Stop.
I'm gonna tell that it's not exactly aligned.
I love it. Yo.
I like graphic work. I don't know how people do. I was like, I would be the worst graphic designer because
I
in a
could not.
way I would have to try to think of it as being perfect, and then a client just be like, move it back over here, and I'm like, what?
Okay.
Like, let's see. Um, I which we talked about like a little bit. Tell me if it's repetitive, but I know that you're settling into the unknown part of your journey, which is, we don't know. We're just walking it. Tell the listeners how they can practice this without feeling that doom belly feeling, because it's a nervous feeling when we don't know what's about to happen next, or the next job, or the next project or thing, and trusting that.
Mm. Personally, I don't know that I think that the doom belly feeling is gonna be there. Like, I'm not even gonna hold y'all. I am not gonna sit here and lie in y'all's ears because y'all can't see me, so it's not your face. I'm not gonna lie in y'all's ears like that. I think that gut doom, because that's just, it's a human response to walking somewhere in the dark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just a natural, like, holy shit, I cannot see. There's like a void. But what always like brings me back, obviously my relationship, with the intangible world. I call it
Mhm.
spirit, you whatever name you have. Because I always come back to like this remembering that this isn't the first time that I've walked into the unknown. And like, I'm still here. I'm good. I'm
Everything's
fine. So,
okay.
like, yeah, I'm fine. So, there's always this, I always go back to like, okay, Mel, you know that everything's going to be fine because everything's been fine before. But I think the big thing for me now is remembering that, yes, like there are times where it truly feels like you are out of control. Because I'm going to go back to that.
Okay.
You are out of control. You're walking in the dark. You can't really see the next step. You don't know. Anything could happen. That's actually everyday life. We have just created this idea that we are in control of shit. And honey, let me tell you,
We're
we
not.
are literally, like, literally not. So for me, remembering that every single thing, whether I think I know or have a plan or not, is the unknown. Like,
Mhm.
like everything is up
Every
in
day.
the air all the time. Yeah, everything is up in the air all the time. But we create our little, no, I know, nope, I have a plan. It's on my calendar. It's on I can see it. I know what I'm working towards. So we create a little, little illusion, a little delusion in our minds.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day,
It's a
it's
bigger
all unknown.
plan.
It's all
Yeah, I like that one a whole lot. I don't think I ever thought about it like that because being such a creature of routine, I think, I'm waking up, I'm doing all these things that I plan, but you're right. Like sometimes things just don't go as planned, like at all. Like something happens and I'm like, and I know that I'm getting better about it because my reaction to that is more or less like, couldn't have planned that, but I guess here we go. Like we're heading
yes.
in a different direction today than what I originally thought.
Mhm.
Oh, okay,
I
that's
know. I
yeah.
almost feel like 2020 broke that through for a lot of people. Like this whole pandemic, I
Okay.
honestly feel like people became a bit more, compassionate when people were flaky, or,
Yeah.
just this idea of like, what's gonna happen today? I don't know.
Yes.
People came to a little bit more acceptance with that due to the way that 2020 we were all collectively dragged.
Yes, we were. Like everybody was tired. Nobody had even had the luxury of having like months off of work or having things to do. And so it was a collective reckoning, as I like to call it, because
Reckoning.
everybody's things got pushed right to the front. All of
Everything.
them.
Everything. Yeah, there was a huge shift with that, and I think a part of it is kind of what you were saying of like people got more
I
what's the
not
word?
to take your words, but I feel like a little more self-aware, like too.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Um, because I know at one point nobody could tell me anything, but I was already, coming out of a dark night of the soul at the time and like reintroducing myself to the world in my new form, like right before all of that happened. So it just gave me a chance to be more still because I busied myself just to not have to sit with myself. Like just
Mhm.
made myself do stuff all the time until it was time to go to sleep. So it took a lot of me like staring at the walls. Like, I guess I'm supposed to be here being still. So I'm gonna enjoy it. And I think I did. It was I like to say like sometimes it was a little bit of a luxury because I know a lot of people went through a harder time, but it just I got to be still. And that was like a big blessing for me.
Mhm.
Definitely so.
Yes.
Um, were you gonna say something?
Oh no. Mm-mm.
Oh,
Nope.
okay. We're getting a little bit close to the end because I don't want to hold you long. But one of the questions I always ask people on the show is, how does your spirituality help you balance your mental health, your self-care, and wellness practices?
Woo. Well, you know, for me personally, it's like my spirituality is a part of all of that.
Yes.
It is literally not separate from anything.
Okay.
It doesn't I there's no compartmentalizing with my spirituality. It's a part of everything.
Okay.
But what I will say is that what was the question? What was the exact question again?
How does your spirituality help you kind of balance your mental health, your self-care, and your wellness practices?
So I think in one thing that I said earlier, um, maybe when you were asking about like the unknown, I kind of said that I always get some type of reminder or some type of something that says like you've you've been okay every time, you know, that you've, I don't know, been heartbroken or been deep in grief or been deep in the unknown, like you're here. So
Yes.
there's definitely some force, not just yourself, that is, I mean, it's your my ancestors too. I haven't mentioned ancestors at all, but like there, you got people and you are protected and you are covered. So I always get reminders of that through my journey, which then allows me to always remember that in the times where I feel like everything else is like glitter being thrown up in the air. That's how life feels right now. It just
Yes.
feels like my life is like glitter and I'm trying to catch glitter. That's what it
Ah,
feels like.
yeah. I know what you mean.
um so I think for me, and then also even when everything else feels like even when my emotional health, because again, like right now, my mental health, emotional health, everything feels like okay, it's a little, you know, a little
Yes. I
rocky in the
feel
moment, but
you.
right, but my spiritual fortitude always feels like right here,
Okay.
right here. So it's almost, it serves as like an anchor for me. And I always like tap into, you know, because I've kind of fallen off on like my morning practices when I wake up, going to my altar and getting straight into movement and all these things. Like I have fallen off with a lot of that. But when I need to like refocus and all the other things I'm trying to do aren't working, like when I actually return to those things, I be feeling like, okay,
Strap in.
You
Okay.
yeah, it's always this thing that brings me back. Even when I fall out of practice, if I just do one thing, I'm usually just
Mhm.
like, okay,
Some
ooh,
deja vu. I'm sorry. It definitely
mm,
was. Okay, go ahead.
get that ooh, girl.
The
And I
whole
was
thing, everything. Your thoughts, your
really,
hand movements. Yeah.
ooh, mm, I love that. I love that. Both of us.
I have to call it
Um,
out. I always have to when
I
it
love it.
happens in the moment, like I do with my partner. I'm like, this is a deja vu. Like we've all of this. And then I'm like, okay, keep talking. Just telling
Mm.
you.
Ooh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
But yeah,
When you
I
come
don't know.
back
That's my
sometimes
answer to that. Yeah,
you
it's my spirituality is an anchor. It is an anchor that keeps me like very rooted, even when everything else feels. And I'm very grateful to say that because that has not always been the case. You know, in every
Mhm.
era of my life, that has not. been the case. So
Yes.
to be in that space now where that my spiritual, my relationship with my spirituality and spiritual self and my spiritual fortitude always feels solid, that's dope. I like that.
Good. I am like you also, like I said, we both have like a moving experience a little bit, and I'm kind of trying to find myself back in my practices, like waking up and kind of like you said, like going to my altar, lighting candles, and reading my cards and journaling. Like that was a part of my everyday, and I like feel off kilter, and it's like maybe one day last week I did it, but the cards were like so on point, and they're just like, come
Come on.
on,
Yeah,
come
yes.
back. Like, come back to us. We got some stuff we need to talk to you about. And I'm like, okay, I'm coming, I'm coming. And I feel I'm starting to feel more at home in this space a little bit more, to where I feel like it will naturally start to happen. But like you said, it's still in my everyday, my spirituality is present regardless to if I wake up that morning, because I still wake up and do my three things I'm grateful for. I've been considering that as journaling instead of being Miss Perfectionist that needs to get the big journal for it to be a journal. The three things I'm grateful for is the journaling.
Yes.
It's like,
Oh my gosh.
and so
Ooh,
that one has been a little micro one that I can do before I hop out of bed to do anything else.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying. We gonna get back on track, or
We gonna get
whatever.
there. We
We
gonna get
back.
there. And like we're already doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we usually do 10 things, but right now we're only doing two, like we're doing it. It's yeah.
Thank you. I agree. Um, so I also ask this question to all of my guests. It's the last one. I am a certified life coach specializing in happiness, fulfillment, and purpose. Tell me what your idea of happiness is, and also something you're grateful for today.
Ooh,
And it varies, take your time.
all
And if it's
right.
not defined, let's go
Yeah,
too.
for me personally, yeah, girl. For me personally, happiness is like a very fleeting thing because we have
Mhm.
moments where we just don't feel happy, and it does not mean that the world has ended for us or that we're doom and doom, but like sometimes you're just not, I don't feel happy right now.
Yeah.
So I think I've been using the word joy more. Joy feels like a soulful, like deep um expression of just feeling good and okay and like your existence is enough.
Yes.
So I have been like rocking with joy, and
Okay.
that's what I think of when I think about joy.
Yes.
And what am I grateful for? I am really grateful. I have to speak to something that you brought up. I'm really grateful right now for the opportunities to talk and use my voice,
Yes.
and like the way that I'm seeing that spirit is laying a path for me, even though I'm walking around like, I don't know, I can't see. And it just keeps like laying a path. So I'm just really grateful for the way that I'm being led right now.
Good. And I hope that you get so many more of these opportunities to just tell your story and to work through, because we know talking helps us work through things. And I hope that the illumination comes the way it's supposed to.
Thank you so
You're
much for that.
so welcome. So, so welcome. So that will wrap up this episode of the podcast. Mel, tell the listeners how they can find you, your website, your socials, whatever you want to throw out there.
Yeah, so right now I don't currently have a website, right? Go figure. So the best place to find me is actually on social media. If you're on Instagram, I'm Mel the Oracle there. You can also find me on YouTube though, and I'm Mel the Oracle there as well. And oh, and my podcast.
Yes.
Yes, Full Ass Human, the podcast. You can find that literally anywhere podcasts are streaming. So, but Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music,
Google, it's so many of them once they get distributed.
I
Like,
know.
I can't let my brain dive into that right now.
Oh,
We gotta work with like a few mediums at a time.
I know.
My
I
brain.
just be like Spotify and Apple, okay?
Yeah. And if you just type it in Google, it'll take you to whichever one you
Yes,
need.
yes. So Full Ass Human, the podcast. So yeah, those are like the three main places that you can find me and vibe with me. Also, if you're a Spotify listener, I am a music junkie, y'all, and I make playlists all the time. So if you're on Spotify, you can find me there too. I'm Mel the Oracle, and just tap in, catch you a vibe with the playlist, y'all. Catch you a vibe.
I love it. I haven't listened to one, but I saw it in all of the music you play when you were dancing. I'm like, what is this song? So I'm pretty sure like they'll all be in there, some of them anyway. But
Yes.
you have good taste in music. I like.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's going to close out the episode. This is episode number 81, Real Talk with Multidimensional Healing Facilitator, Movement Artist, and host of the Full As Human podcast, Melanie Holst, aka Mel the Oracle. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye. Let's see here.